For Texas A&M to overachieve in 2024, Conner Weigman needs to be a top 15 quarterback in college football.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be out around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Today, we are going to run through 10 reasons why Texas A&M will overachieve in 2024 and 5 reasons why they won't. And, of course, we have labeled overachieve as 9-3 or better, underachieve as 7-5 or worse. So let's get straight into it. The number one reason that Texas A&M is going to be able to overachieve in 2024 is thanks to Conner Weigman. List came out yesterday that was ranked the top 30 quarterbacks in college football. Conner Weigman was in the top 15. And, that stood out to me because one thing we forget, quarterback play is everything. If you don't have solid quarterback play, you won't succeed. Reality. End of the day, if your quarterbacks aren't good, you won't succeed. Texas A&M has a really good quarterback in Conner Weigman. He is so good that I think he can lead this team to overachieving. It's a simple concept. I think that's how good Conner Weigman is going to be this season. So, I also have Conner Weigman / quarterback depth. One thing we know is Texas A&M has dealt with quarterback injuries for years and years and years and years. Normally, an injury isn't something you talk about, you don't prepare for, but it's like with how much trouble Texas A&M has had keeping their starting quarterback healthy, you almost have to assume Weigman's going to miss a game. I mean, just because of this reality. So depth is huge. Depth is huge at quarterback, and Texas A&M has it. Texas A&M has plenty of depth at the position. You feel good about Jalen Henderson, feel good about Marcel Reed, feel good about this room as a whole when it comes to the depth. So I think that Conner Weigman has a really solid season in front of him. If he's a top 15 quarterback in college football, Texas A&M wins 9 games. In the discussion right there. That's just the reality here. That's how this season outlook is. If Weigman does that, Texas A&M overachieves. So that is the number one reason. My number 2 reason is strength and conditioning coach Tommy Moffitt. And maybe y'all everydayers here, Locked On Aggies, are saying, Andrew, I think you're overvaluing Tommy Moffitt and what he brings to the table. I don't think I am. I don't think I am one bit. I think that the issues Texas A&M had staying healthy last season and in previous years have some to do with strength and conditioning. Now, would a better strength and conditioning program help? Would that have helped Conner Weigman with his ankle against Auburn? No. That's a freak injury. Freak injuries are going to happen. But what we're talking about here is hamstrings, soft tissue stuff. That is what strength and conditioning can help protect players from. And Tommy Moffitt is one of the best in the business. I think that you're going to see a lot of players gain good weight, lose bad weight, get themselves in the spot physically they want to be ahead of the 2024 season. This is a valuable asset. And, we'll talk about the coaching staff here in a little bit, but Tommy Moffitt, to me, he's a little different, I think, than the coaching staff. I mean, he's still technically, coaching staff, but I I just think what he's going to bring to the table, helping this team be in really good shape ahead of the season, is incredibly valuable, and I think it's going to make this football team better. So Tommy Moffitt is one of my top 10 reasons why Texas A&M is going to be able to overachieve in 2024. The number 3 reason I have, and this is one y'all knew was coming, but is the schedule. Texas A&M's schedule is so incredibly manageable now. I always say it is still an SEC schedule. You know, you are still playing some talented football teams. You're still playing some good teams on the road. You're playing some great teams at home in Kyle Field. But that's the thing. All of your games that we would label your challenging games, your toss-up games, or maybe more the games you're not supposed to win, are all in Kyle Field. Every one of them. So, we talk about 9-3. It's very simple. All you have to do is win one of those 4 tough games in Kyle Field that you're probably not supposed to, and then take care of business on the road. And you overachieve. Very simple. The path to 9-3 is not hard to get to for Texas A&M. That's just the reality here. You can easily convince yourself that this team is going to be able to win. 9 football games when you look at the schedule and you look at all of the details heading into the season. It's why I really do believe this team will overachieve this season. So schedule is my 3rd reason. And, there's going to be a couple caveats to the schedule, but we'll talk about that in the 5 reasons Texas A&M could underachieve here in segment 3. So you got to love this schedule. You got to love the fact that this gives Texas A&M a really good shot to overachieve. The next thing I have here is offensive line play, offensive line improvement. Offensive line is everything, and this will come. This will come back up in the episode later. We assume this offensive line is going to be better. I think Tommy Moffitt will play a role in that. I think that coaching turnover will play a role in that. I just don't think Adazio was getting the job done. I don't think he was. So I think that you're in a better spot now. Coaching-wise, I think you added a couple of talented players via the portal on the offensive line. And then I think you've got some talented guys back. You had a couple of guys on the field last year that weren't healthy. You had some players that are going to change positions this year from what they played last year that's more comfortable. I just think this offensive line is going to be in a better spot. And, it's frustrating because Texas A&M was getting the guys. They were getting the guys on the offensive line. It seems like there was a development issue under the previous coaching staff. I don't think that's going to be an issue anymore. I do not think you're going to see this offensive line struggle. And, I talk about how important offensive line plays. If you don't have a good offensive line, it's hard to succeed. They do everything. They give you quarterback time. They create holes for the running backs. If the offensive line is bad, your offense is bad. End of discussion. So you got to have a good offensive line. And I do feel confident Texas A&M's offensive line is going to be better in 2024. But how much better is what is going to be the fine line between overachieving and underachieving. And that once again will be a discussion that comes up here a little bit later in the show. The 5th reason I have is offensive balance. I think Texas A&M is going to find a real nice balance in their offense next year between the run and the pass. And I think this is going to open things up. I think that running plays, I think that play action, different things like that will open things up in the passing game. And, Coach Klein, we'll get into coaching staff here in a minute. He likes to run his quarterbacks. He likes to run the football, but he also likes to throw the football. He's a coach who likes to have balance in his offense. So I think that is going to make Texas A&M more unpredictable offensively. So I think that offensive balance is a reason this team could overachieve in 2024. And it's not that Texas A&M was super unbalanced last year. I just think yards per carry was a bit of a struggle at times, and there was just a lot there. Obviously, last year you had quarterback switching in and out, a lot going on. But I do think offensive balance will be better this year, and I think a balanced offense is a good offense. So those are 5 reasons. We've got 5 more reasons, including a lot of coaching staff discussions and just the culture of the roster. We're going to have that. We're going to continue this conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. A couple incredible vehicles. They've got the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. It's got class exclusive Google built in, so you're always updating assistant to help you with everything you could need. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Then you have the Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in the first class and luxury style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada out and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. So a few more reasons why this Texas A&M team can overachieve in 2024. And another one, number 6 here, is the culture. You know, this stuff matters. It matters. And of course, some of these are football related. Some of these are not as much football related, and culture, of course, not being football related. But it matters. And Coach Elko seems to be building a really good culture. The previous regime, I'm not trying to always hate on Jimbo, but I think there seemed to be a culture issue. There did seem to be a culture issue. No question there. And I think you're going to see that fixed. I think that, and I think it matters. I think a team that is close, a team that fights together, a team that brothers on and off the field, I think that stuff matters. And I think that's what Coach Elko and his staff are building. And that is going to lead to wins on the football field. It really does matter. So, I love that. I love the culture of this roster. I love the fact that they aren't afraid. They aren't afraid to push that. Coach Elko, I think, has made that clear in interviews during different things that culture is important and culture is going to be something that changes. And I think it's moving in the right direction. So, it's a bit of a cliche, but it does to me matter. I think it can lead to wins on the football field. Culture is a very, very important aspect of a football team, of a football program. And Elko is building a strong one at Texas A&M right now. And then, of course, after that, a little bit, we've talked a little bit about Coach Klein, talked a little bit about Coach Elko, but coaching staff. I really like Texas A&M's coaching staff. I think every hire Coach Elko made is solid. There's not one hire he made that I'm like, I don't know about that. I feel really good about top to bottom every single hire that he made across his coaching staff. So I think that you're going to see Texas A&M's coaching staff be in a really good spot. I think, some guys that haven't been around as much as the guys on the previous staff, some younger guys, some younger guys. Coach, Klein's a younger guy. The receivers coach Wiggins is a younger guy. These guys are up and coming, incredible coaches. And I think Coach Elko did a good job getting a staff. I like a staff like that with young players, a coaching staff with young coaches that are making a name for themselves. I've talked about with Coach Klein. I think he's going to be a head coach very, very quickly. Very quickly. So taking a shot on some young guys, I think always is a great idea. And that's what Coach Elko seems to be doing. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about this coaching staff, top to bottom. I mean, seriously, top to bottom when it comes to support staff, when it comes to, of course, strength and conditioning, when it comes to coordinators. I feel really good about Texas A&M's coaching staff, position coaches. And once again, that stuff really does matter. So the next reason I have here for why Texas A&M is going to overachieve in 2024 is Nick Scorton. I think Nick Scorton is going to have an incredible season. Those of you that listen to the show every day know this isn't a secret. I am a huge, huge Nick Scorton fan. I think he's going to have an incredible season. I think he's a guy who could have, double-digit sacks at Texas A&M in the SEC. Would not surprise me one bit to see him do that. And, so not only Nick Scorton, I have Nick Scorton, kind of like I had Conner Weigman / quarterback depth. I have Nick Scorton / high sack numbers. Last year, you led the SEC in sacks. You were number 7, I believe, in all college football in sacks with 42. You want to have a lot of sacks. You want to create a lot of pressure, especially with the conversation we're going to have coming up here next. But, high sack numbers are always going to help a defense. And I think Nick Scorton is an addition that is going to help bring high sack numbers. So I think it was the most significant transfer portal addition. And I really think that. I don't even know if it's much of a debate. I feel really good about Scorton and what he brings to the table. I think he's going to be an absolute star during his time at Texas A&M, and I cannot wait to see how this plays out. So pressure on the quarterback, high sack numbers, Nick Scorton having a good year are also keys to Texas A&M overachieving. I think if Scorton has double-digit sacks, I think Texas A&M has, or even 8. I think Texas A&M has a really good chance to repeat as the SEC champion when it comes to sack numbers. So that's going to be a key here. Nick Scorton having a lot of sacks. The next thing I have here is the players you brought in via the portal in the secondary succeeding like we think they're going to. We know how bad the secondary was last season. I mean, it was truly, truly awful at times. Secondary has to be better. If it didn't take receivers long to get open last year. Even with all the pressure that Texas A&M was getting on the quarterback, it seems like the receivers only needed a few seconds to get open, and then it doesn't matter what your pass rush can do. If you're going against a competent quarterback, all they got to do is float out a pass that can be caught, and Texas A&M was in trouble last year. So the secondary has to be better this season, and the players that Coach Elko brought in via the transfer portal have to be better. That's just into the story here. If you want to overachieve this season, Texas A&M's transfer portal secondary players are going to have to be really good. If Texas A&M doesn't have a good secondary, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. But, I think that I do feel confident in these portal additions. I think Des Ricks is going to be good. I think the Blanket Lee is going to be great. I feel really good about these secondary additions from the portal. And I think that's going to help when it comes to the outlook for the 2024 season. So the last thing I have here was our discussion from yesterday's show, and that is running back depth. And I think it was something I kind of realized yesterday of like, hey, Texas A&M has a lot of depth at running back, a lot of talented players who we think can play substantial snaps, who we think can be really good players. You have 4 running backs who I think could be starters at the Power 5 level. That is how good Texas A&M's depth is at the running back position. So I feel really good about that position. I think that's going to help. I think if one guy gets banged up, hey, you got 3 more guys that can mix into the lineup. So running back depth is going to be extremely important for Texas A&M. I love the depth of this room, and I think it's going to lead to success. It's going to lead to touchdowns on the ground. It's going to lead to better yards per carry numbers. Texas A&M's running backs will be better in 2024 thanks to depth, thanks to the coaching changes, thanks to offensive change, offensive philosophy changes. I can't wait to see how good these running backs are this season. So those are the 10 reasons I think Texas A&M can overachieve, go 9-3 or better in 2024. Let's talk about 5 reasons that they underachieve. We'll have that discussion coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our wonderful friends over at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on all college hoops until they cut the nets down. March Madness is right around the corner. Hopefully the Aggies are able to sneak into the tournament. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be tight. But at the end of the day, March Madness is going to be a ton of fun, and there's no better place to bet on the action than FanDuel Sportsbook. So 5 reasons Texas A&M could underachieve in 2024. The first I have here, and it's a lot of these are things we kind of hinted at. The first I have here is quarterback injury. And once again, the fact that this even has to be a discussion is crazy. There's not a lot of schools that are breaking down. There's not a lot of fellow college Locked On hosts going, well, if our quarterback gets hurt, but at the end of the day, what has happened to Texas A&M over these last handful of seasons, it has to become a discussion. So the offensive line has got to keep Conner Weigman healthy. If Texas A&M could just have one quarterback play the entire season, it would be the most exciting thing to ever happen in a long time. It's been so long. I feel like I was learning to walk when Texas A&M last had a quarterback play every game of the season without an injury. So, and it's football. It's a rough game. There's injuries, but offensive line can help keep the quarterback healthy. So quarterback staying healthy is quarterback injury, is a reason why Texas A&M could underachieve. If Conner Weigman goes down and it's a quarterback carousel all season long, this team could underachieve. My next reason is the offensive line struggles again. We keep saying we think the offensive line is going to be better. Well, you know what we thought last year? The offensive line was going to be better, and it wasn't. So, you got to hope this offensive line takes a step in the right direction. I think some of the additions they made via the portal, I think, once again, I gave you the reasons why I think the offensive line is going to be better. But if it doesn't, this offense won't flow. This offense won't be good. I don't care how good of a coordinator Coach Klein is. I don't care how good of a quarterback Conner Weigman is. If you don't fix the offensive line, this team will not succeed. So offensive line play is going to be massive. It will make or break this offense and potentially this season. The other thing that will make or break this season, I think, is the secondary. Same reason as the offensive line. The secondary last year was awful. It was not good. And it led to a lot of long touchdowns. Miami, if the secondary is a little bit better against Miami, Texas A&M should win that football game. That is the reality here. That is how bad the secondary was. It cost you games. It cost you football games. That was how bad the secondary was last year. And you did a great job adding players that should fix those issues. But still, we can sit here and say it all we want. It has to happen. I can sit here and say, well, Des Ricks and Will Lee are going to be great. Okay, that's awesome. Let's see it. They still got to do it. They got to be great. And if they aren't, this secondary could struggle. So need to see those portal players be good. And if they're not, and the secondary struggles once again, this team could underachieve. So the next thing I have here is Florida/Auburn being better than we think. Underachieve, it doesn't just mean, Texas A&M and their roster. I think it means what's going on with their opponents. And we talk about, you playing the tough games at home. You got the LSU and the Missouri and the Texas and the Notre Dame coming to Kyle Field, and those are your games. That's how you get to 9 wins, is you win one of those. But you have to take care of business in the 8 games that you're supposed to win. The 2 most difficult of those 8 games you're supposed to win are playing Florida and Auburn on the road. I'm not a huge believer in either of those 2 football teams next year, but you never know. I think if I had to pick one to be the better team, I think it would probably be Auburn, but then I think Florida has better quarterback play, so it's kind of tough. But, if you lose one of those games, it becomes a lot harder to overachieve. So if Florida or Auburn has a better season than we anticipate, Texas A&M could underachieve. And then the last reason I have here is you're unable to score touchdowns in the red zone. It was a huge issue last year. It seems like Texas A&M just couldn't punch it in for 6 in the red zone. A lot of field goals. We saw a lot of Randy Bond. We didn't want to see a lot of Randy Bond unless he was kicking for 1 point, not 3. And I think, and Coach Klein, we ran through those numbers. Coach Klein was incredible when it came to scoring in the red zone. So hopefully that number improves for Texas A&M in 2024. But if the Aggies are not able to punch it in for touchdowns this season, instead of, they're kicking a lot of field goals, this team could struggle to score a lot of points. So I think scoring touchdowns in the red zone is a reason Texas A&M goes 9-3 or better. And kicking field goals in the red zone is a reason Texas A&M could go 7-5 or worse. So those are the reasons. Let me know in the comments, what is your number one reason Texas A&M overachieves and Texas A&M underachieves? I'm really curious to hear y'all's thoughts on that. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. I really appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow.